James Lipton is here. He is a creator, executive producer, and host of the Bravo Network show called Inside the Actor's Studio. Here's a look. This new book is called Inside Inside. I am pleased to have James Lipton back at this table. Welcome.
Thank you, Charlie. It's a great pleasure to be here.
You have done many things, creating Inside the Actor's Studio, television producer, actor. This is another evolution, and critics love it.
Thank God.
You spent 14 hours a day.
7 days a week for 2 years.
For 2 years.
Yes, sir. Yeah, because for the first 10 years of the Actors Studio Drama School, of which I was the founding dean, I lived a double life, as you remember. Yes. As you know better than anybody. And I was dean of the school, and I was all those things on Inside the Actors Studio. And when I stepped down as dean, I decided that I would respond to the many requests that I had had to write another book, namely this one. And that's how this book was born.
So what was the challenge, and what made it difficult?
The challenge was to step out of the shadows. Again, I don't have to tell you, when you're sitting there and there's a guest sitting here, the focus is on the guest. I did that for all those years and still do it. I decided that I would tell the inside story, hence Inside of Inside the Actors Studio, that I would reveal all of its secrets, that I would tell its history and the school's history, and that I would talk about in the book the great moments for me with these great guests of the show. But they also wanted a memoir. That was the curveball.
Yeah. Well, you almost say with a certain apology at the beginning, this is not about me.
Exactly. I quote the beginning of David Copperfield when he says, whether I shall be the hero of these pages or it will be other people, these pages will show. And I admit on the first page that it is not my intention to be the hero of this piece, but that it's about the heroes of my life. And that is what I embarked on. It's not written in a linear way. It's written in concentric circles. I double back. And at a certain point in the book, I begin to tell my own story that brought me to Inside the Actors Studio. And that is where the surprises began. W.H. Auden quoted a child who said, "How do I know what I think till I see what I say?" And André Gide at the end of The Counterfeiters, there was a character in the great book, Uncle Edouard, who kept a diary, and you never knew what was in it, although it was key to the book. But then it says the end, you turn the page, whoa, there's Uncle Edouard's diary. It was Gide's diary as he was writing the book. And in that diary, he said, I know I'm writing well when the character sees the book from me. And suddenly I'm surprised at what comes up on the paper in front of me. I'm angered, I'm touched, I'm amused. I become more reader than writer. And that, in a way, is what happened to me, especially in the parts when I was writing about my own life. There are, I think, a lot of surprises in the book. No one who reads it will be as surprised by it as I was when I wrote it.
Really? How was that?
Because I didn't know how I felt about these things. I knew these things had happened to me.
The Auden quote.
When I'm in that chair and someone's in this chair, my goal is to find those moments, those events, those people in their lives that shaped them as people and as artists. That's all we're doing up there on my show. And when I put myself in that chair, I said to myself, you're going to have to reply with the same candor that you have expected from your guests. And that was the hard part.
What was the hardest part to acknowledge?
Two things. My relationship with my father and a fact that I realized a third of the way through the book, after my father, the beatnik poet, vanished. Right. When I was 6, my mother and I were alone. Life was a struggle. And I turned off on family. There were just the two of us. I didn't think that families mattered. A third of the way through the book, I realized with a start that this journey that I write about in here has been a search for family. A lot of different kinds of family, extended family. And that was the biggest surprise in the book for me.
The understanding that that's what your life has been about.
That has been my pursuit. On the show, the major theme that has emerged over the last 13 years, without question, is the divided family. 75% of my guests, and I dare say 75% of the guests you've had from my profession, are the result of broken families, death, divorce, separation. And I developed over the course of these years a theory that's unprovable, like most of my theories, that it is the spark that has engendered many of these careers that sat opposite me in that chair. An effort to say to somebody who's long gone, look, 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 I did something. Here I am. Hear me? See me? And I think...
Make my daddy proud.
Make whoever is missing, mother, the father, and somehow to fill that void. I didn't know until I wrote this book that there was a void. I thought I was fine. Everything was fine the way it was. I didn't think I had to look back at these events, but once I looked back at them and began recounting them, as my guests have recounted their lives on my show, I discovered I had feelings I didn't know I had, that I thought things I didn't know I thought, that I felt things I didn't know I felt, and that's what this book is full of, for better or worse.
Is it an emptiness? Is it anger? Is it what?
No, not an anger, no.
Because your father left. And
Right.
left you with your mother.
Right.
He was multi-time married, 5 times?
My father was married many times. I was the only child he ever had.
Yeah, then he left.
Yeah, well, he left. He was married after he left us, the multiple marriages. But he vanished, and we were thrust into a very difficult situation. My mother was a school teacher. These were hard times. My father was a poet, so we hadn't had much when he was there. And the result was that he was erased. I only saw him a dozen times, maybe, in the rest of his life. They were always, the occasions are recounted in here because they were of some importance to me. But I thought that I didn't have any feelings at all. There's no anger in it. I don't feel angry at him. I discovered that I really didn't know what I felt. And when I read in the Times that he had died, I say in the book, I read with surprise that an acquaintance of mine had died in Los Angeles. Isn't that a terrible thing to say? And I admit at that point that
it's a terrible thing
to feel.
To feel.
Yeah. And, well, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
And I say in the book that it's not his fault, it's mine. But the rest of my life, I discovered, lo and behold, all these heroes of my life who pop up in this from every aspect of my life were people toward whom I was feeling something familial but didn't know it.
How soon after he died did you find out?
That he had died? Mm-hmm. I read it in the Times. A few days, said Lawrence.
You read it in the Times. There was nobody to call you and say your dad died.
No. But
what did you do when you read it, other than?
I looked for an emotion. I said, "Well, Jim, time to feel something, isn't it?" I felt nothing. Maybe I'm just as stolid and as stony as Will Ferrell portrays me. Maybe that's it. Maybe Will's got me right, and that's the way I am. But in this book, there is a search. This book was a voyage of discovery, and for me, terribly exciting and sometimes moving and sometimes scary. Those parts of it, which are interwoven, as you know, it's not linear. It's interwoven with Inside the Actor's Studio. It doubles back. It's concentric circles. It's like a Venn diagram. But this was probably the major discovery of the book, was that I have been on a search of which I was unaware.
Mm. It doesn't sound like you were obsessed or passionate to know a lot about him.
About my relationship with my father?
Yeah, and your father. I mean, you let it pass.
Yes, not only did I let it pass, but I set out in an opposite direction. As you recall from the book, you're a lawyer. That was my pursuit when I went to university.
You start this with the narrator's description of the clerk in the general prologue of Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales.
And gladly would he learn and gladly teach. Because the book begins with the creation of the Actors Studio Drama School, and thereby hangs a tale. I explained in the book, in the first chapter, perhaps unwisely, my passion for philosophy and for universal causation, determinism, for the argument that for every event there is a determinable cause, and that life occurs in links. And if any link is cut, the chain is broken. And I explain in the beginning of the book, in the first chapter of the book, the links that led to the school and to Inside the Actors Studio. And full disclosure, you're one of those links, of course. What happened was that I was now a member of the studio. Norris Church and Norman Mailer had persuaded me to join the studio, which I did very enthusiastically.
This was year what?
This was 15 years ago. And the studio was on its uppers. I mean, all the cultural institutions in New York were starving to death. The studio was going from hand to mouth. The studio's never been a school. It's never had tuition, never had graduation. It's never had fees of any kind. It's free.
What was it?
It's a private club. It is a place, a gymnasium, where the greatest actors who lived in New York between 1947 and the present time could audition and join. Famously hard to get into. Let's see, Dustin Hoffman auditioned 6 times. Jack Nicholson, 5. Harvey Keitel, 11. But once in, you were a life member. And it was a place to get out of the spotlight, away from the critics, away from the public, and to make mistakes, and to dare, and to learn the Stanislavski method.
And what was the impact of Strasberg on it?
Strasberg was profoundly impactful. Strasberg came in a couple of years after it was founded, and he was its guiding light until his death. He produced 2 generations of amazing actors. Think of it, from the early ones, Paul Newman and Steve McQueen and Jimmy Dean and Marilyn Monroe, right up through Pacino and De Niro and Jack Nicholson and Duvall and Dustin Hoffman. Generations of amazing actors. So he had a tremendous impact on it. The studio is a very important force in America. I say in the book that while the Comédie Française and the National Theatre of Great Britain and MGM in 1939, all of them had great rosters, and they made huge contributions. But no institution has ever had as deep a bench, as enormous a marquee as the Actors Studio. And back then in 1993, we were faced with some very, very serious problems that could have put an end to the Actors Studio. And it was after one of these meetings that I went to bed, and I woke up the next morning, and there was something in my head that was complete.
The entire plan.
The entire plan. Freud insisted that the unconscious can work at night. For some reason, mine did. I woke up the next morning, and there it was, a school. I even knew what classes would be like. And I said to my wife, Gedekai, do you think that Jonathan Fanton would take my call? She was a board member of the Parsons School of Design, of which she was an alumna, and we'd been at dinners there. Anyway, he took my call. And I said to him, what if at the stroke of a pen, one could restore to the new school some of the glory that adhered to it when it rescued 200 scholars and artists from Germany?
Right.
And Piscator created the dramatic workshop in the 40s and then went back to Germany. Go on, taciturn Yankee. And I said, what if I could persuade my colleagues at the Actors Studio to create for the first time in our history a degree-granting program? He said, where's the pen and when do I sign?
When do I sign?
And I then went back to the studio and said, look, we can rescue ourselves. We can become an independent institution financially. Let's create a school. Let's open the doors, not to let the world in. It's still a private, crotchety, ornery place, fine. Difficult to get into, impossible to get into for some. But we'll let the method out in a degree-granting program. So anyway, a committee was formed. I headed it for the studio. It was my idea. And the new school appointed a committee. Fanton oversaw this whole thing. And we created the school. And it took a year to do that. And then in August, we were accredited by the state. And lo and behold, we had to admit students. Look out, here comes Charlie. We had to admit students. And where do we begin now? At that point, you invited us to this table.
This very table?
This table. And it was Norman Mailer, you remember, and Ellen Burstyn. I was there. Paul Newman was there. And you asked us about the school, and you let us talk about it until we were blue in the face. Subsequently, the registrations flooded in.
And you would ask people, how did you know about us?
How did you know about... Every school does that. How did you know about our school? And they all said, the Charlie Rose Show. And I say, if that link if you had not invited us, that link would not have existed, and there's every chance in the world that you and I would not be sitting here talking today.
Yeah, see, I don't agree with that. Because for this reason, I would like to, and I'd like to give you to give me all the credit that you can possibly give me. I will take it all.
I'm going to prove it to you in a minute. You want to prove?
Yes.
If you had not put us on the air, it would have been very difficult to recruit that first class. We recruited a class of about 70. We would probably, without the publicity that came out of this studio, we would probably have recruited a dozen. And I don't think we would have lasted the year. Universities can't support that kind of graduate program.
Here's why I don't agree with it.
Okay.
I think that you had too much drive, and you would have made it happen through another way. It was destined to be, and you were going to make it happen. It was not to be an unfulfilled obsession. It was not to be.
But I've had other obsessions, Charlie, that weren't achieved.
Okay, but I believe about this because this was an idea this was an idea, that had to happen.
As Victor Hugo said, nothing so powerful as an idea whose time has come.
And that was an idea whose time has come. Exactly. I was thinking of that quote, and you think you're much better at that than I am.
No.
But that is the idea. I realize. It was an idea whose time has come, and it would have come, period. So the students come in. Give me what you teach there. Why was this unique and different? The three.
It is to this day. It is the only.
Had three. Go ahead.
Pardon me. It is a 3-year MFA for actors, writers, and directors.
Master of Fine Arts.
Master of Fine Arts. We began by making the decision that we would train them together, side by side, for 3 years, actors, writers, and directors. It is the only school in the United States of America where the writers and the directors, in addition to the specialized training that they get from the first day, are trained as actors beside the actors, indistinguishable from the actors in our classes. Second, every teacher in that school is a life member of the Actors Studio. Third, they are trained in the Stanislavski system, which is, we think, an effective way to proceed not only as an actor but as a writer or director. In the third year, I brought with me some of the things that I had intended to use as a lawyer, and that was the practicum year of a law school. The third year of our school is a practicum year in which our actors, writers, and directors unite in a repertory season, an authentic repertory season, and the work that they've produced over the 3 years is presented to the public, to the university administration, and to the professional world.
It's a short piece, though, is it not?
These are we do we do many pieces. We do it for 12 to 15 weeks, and there are 5 performances each week, and each piece is 30 to 40 minutes, and we do 3 a night.
Here's what is interesting to me, because I believe this so strongly. I love actors, and I love the magic of the performance. What you say in this is that the actor is at the center. That is an essence of what comes out of this school.
It's called the Actors Studio for a reason. We explained to the students in the brochure that they receive when they go on the Pace University website now to come to us. At the end of the day, at the end of the professional day, what's left in front of the camera's lens or on the stage? The actor. The actor has to embody at that point all of those skills and ambitions and talents of the writer, of the director, of the scenic designer, of the costume designers, the makeup people. That's all that's left on that stage. And it makes no more sense for a writer to write a play without knowing, or a screenplay, without having any knowledge of what an actor does or how an actor does it, than it would make for a composer to write a symphony without knowing what an oboe can and cannot do, and every other instrument in the orchestra. So the first year they're trained side by side, and then they separate and they are given specialized training, extraordinary training in my opinion, and then when they unite in the third year, in the practicum year, in the repertory season, they do some work that I think is unlike anything you would ever see in a university setting.
Now, what is it, help me understand this idea. The thing that you dream is to have a graduate of the school come back as a guest on Inside the Actors Studio.
That's the one I want. When they say, what do you want? I say, when one of them has come to me, yeah. It takes a long time for an actor to develop.
It's 20 years. Why is that true?
Meisner said it.
I know Stanford Meisner said it, but doesn't make it true.
Well, he said it because he was smart.
Right.
Because it takes a long time to learn how to do it. Look, one of the difficulties, Robert Lewis, one of my three great teachers, Stella Adler, Harold Clement,
This essentially means there's no great actor under 40.
No, there are exceptions, and I can explain that too. But the thing is that people think when they see a really brilliant performance that it was easy. Why? Because it looks easy. It's walking and talking, and we all walk and talk. Bobby Lewis, one of my teachers, said that you're going to want to strangle people. They're going to come up to you and say, that was a great performance. You know, I could do that. And the better you are, the more often you'll hear that. And it takes years to acquire the concentration, the relaxation that Stanislavski taught, that we teach in the first year, all of the skills that go into that simple performance. Now, everybody doesn't get there the same way. Olivier didn't. There are many actors who don't. But Stanislavski, he addressed that. He said, I grant you that there are people who have such enormous talents, and they believe that any imposition of system of any kind will interfere with that magic for them. And they prefer to act by the grace of God. Said Stanislavski, that's fine on the nights when you act by the grace of God well. What about the nights when you act by the grace of God badly? Yes. And in that case, he said, you will probably need to join the rest of us of lesser talent who go and learn a technical system that will enable us always to cross a threshold of performance.
I invite you back because there's so much more I wanted to get to. I have the demands of time, which the stage and the theater has that.
Yes,
and you'll have two opportunities to talk about this book. Inside's gotten lots of praise, as I said. Not book jacket praise, but praise in terms of people who have read it. And it is clearly being praised as one of the best memoirs to come down the pike in a while.